Wealthy millionaire ignores pregnant wife's calls while shopping with mistress wife. Walks away for good. Nadia Holmes was once the picture of elegance and tranquility, a young woman married to a millionaire entrepreneur, Ethan Holmes, and expecting their first child, but beneath the gleam of her diamond ring and her designer dresses, her heart bled with doubt. One afternoon, during her third trimester, she tried desperately to reach Ethan while experiencing alarming pains. Instead of picking up, Ethan was spotted at a high-end boutique, laughing and holding hands with his mistress, Bianca Reyes. The phone kept ringing, unanswered. Every ring tightened a noose of betrayal around Nadia's heart. Little did he know this was the day everything changed. Nadia Holmes grew up in a small Ohio town named Brookdale, where life was simple and neighbors greeted each other with warm smiles and homemade pies. She was raised by her grandmother, Lillian Benson, who taught her resilience and the power of unconditional love. As a child, Nadia had big dreams. She'd stand in the backyard beneath sprawling oak trees and imagine living in a grand city, surrounded by lights and possibilities. She prayed for a bright, loving future. When she first met Ethan Holmes, it felt like fate. He was tall, confident, and carried himself with the surety of a self-made man. They bumped into each other at a charity gala in Cincinnati, where he was a guest speaker extolling the virtues of hard work. Nadia attended the event as a volunteer, ushering prominent donors to their seats. The moment Ethan took the stage, her heart fluttered at his commanding presence. After the event, he sought her out, curious about the down-to-earth volunteer who'd kindly returned a button from his tuxedo jacket that had fallen off earlier. "I appreciate you," he had said that night, his voice a warm blend of charm and sincerity. It was an unlikely moment for sparks to fly, but for Nadia, it was unforgettable. A whirlwind romance ensued: fine dinners, long drives along the countryside, stolen kisses in quiet corners of grand hotels. Ethan was unpredictable, always juggling business calls, always chasing more success. Yet, he seemed to make time for Nadia in his own unique way. Over the next year, Ethan's star rose even higher. His real estate development company, Holmes Innovations, garnered national attention. Newspapers hailed him as a visionary. Real estate moguls like Gregory Stevenson and private equity financiers, such as Adams and Castillo Partners, courted him with lavish offers. Nadia, naive to big city politics and enormous sums of money, often watched Ethan with pride and mild terror. She was proud of his accomplishments, yet sometimes fearful that his ambition would eclipse their relationship. But in the beginning, Ethan made her feel special. He took her on lavish vacations to Italy and Spain. He never forgot to bring her small tokens from his business trips, perhaps a silk scarf from Paris or antique earrings from Tokyo. When Ethan asked Nadia to marry him under the shimmering glow of the Eiffel Tower, she felt like she was living a fairy tale. The wedding, attended by a who's who of the business world, took place 6 months later at a grand estate in upstate New York. Ethan wore a custom-tailored tux, Nadia wore a hand-stitched lace gown, and the starry sky illuminated the promise of their forever. As they started their married life, Nadia wanted children. She yearned for the warmth of a family after losing her grandmother. Ethan, on the other hand, insisted that they wait. He always had another acquisition to finalize, another deal to close. Despite his reluctance, Nadia's gentle persistence ultimately swayed him, and when she announced her pregnancy, he wore a taut, polite smile. She told herself it was relief and excitement. But a small voice within her wondered, was Ethan truly happy, or was he simply playing the role of the husband society expected him to be? Now, 7 months pregnant, Nadia lived in a lavish penthouse overlooking downtown Cincinnati. She filled the baby's room with soft pastel colors, carefully chosen after reading endless nursery design guides. She felt the baby kick on quiet afternoons, while Ethan was away on business trips. As the months wore on, she noticed his calls growing less frequent, his reassuring text messages nearly non-existent. Each morning she hoped for a loving good luck, Mama, but he would only hastily kiss her cheek on his way to the office. When she mustered the courage to complain, Ethan brushed her off. "I'm doing this for us. My schedule is insane." One day, she discovered a new tension in his voice when he spoke of his meetings and networking events. Little by little, doubt crept in, forming cracks in the pristine glass walls of their marriage. She was determined to keep her spirits high for the sake of the little life inside her. But an ominous feeling told Nadia that soon something would shatter. In her third trimester, Nadia's world revolved around prenatal appointments, reading about childbirth, and sorting through baby gifts from well-wishers. Sometimes she'd log on to social media and notice pictures of Ethan tagged at upscale parties with so-called colleagues. She scrutinized every detail of the images, looking for any sign of who might be next to him. Typically, he stood near men in suits or, at times, with elegantly dressed women. Innocent enough, right? But one evening, Nadia stumbled upon a photo posted by a well-known society blogger, Hannah Beckett. The picture showed Ethan at a high-end boutique opening in downtown Cincinnati. Standing next to him, wearing a tight-fitting red dress, was Bianca Reyes, an emerging fashion designer rumored to be captivating the hearts and wallets of wealthy patrons. The angle of the photograph was casual, but something about their posture, the closeness of their shoulders, the playful tilt of their heads, made Nadia's blood run cold. She recalled a recent argument. Nadia had asked Ethan to join her for a crucial ultrasound appointment, but he had claimed an urgent business trip out of town. Was that urgent trip actually to attend this boutique opening with Bianca? She tried to dismiss the gnawing jealousy, reminding herself to trust her husband. Yet, the pit in her stomach grew. She confronted Ethan later that night with the photo, her eyes brimming with tears and worry. He brushed it off as typical business networking. "Don't be silly," he said, swinging his jacket over a chair. "She's a designer I'm considering investing in. That's all." The hollowness in his tone stung like a slap. Despite his assurances, Bianca's name began to surface more frequently. Nadia found a mysterious perfume scent on one of Ethan's suit jackets. It wasn't hers, nor was it the detergent she used for laundry. She noticed how Ethan's phone would light up late at night with calls he quickly dismissed. When Nadia asked who was calling, he'd mutter telemarketer or spam, avoiding eye contact. Nadia tried to reason with her mounting suspicions. She reminded herself that trust was the cornerstone of any marriage. She spoke to her best friend, Elena Martinez, about the creeping doubts. Elena had known Nadia since college and always offered her unwavering support. But this time, Elena's advice was cautious. "Nadia, I'm not telling you to jump to conclusions, but it's not wrong to ask questions. You deserve peace of mind." With her belly growing larger each day, Nadia felt more vulnerable. She was deeply in love, but her body demanded rest, emotional support, and reassurance. Her mind, meanwhile, conjured up every possible scenario of betrayal. Ethan's repeated absences at critical pregnancy milestones worsened her insecurities. During her baby shower, he arrived late, made a half-hearted toast, then rushed out to take care of an emergency deal. Nadia bit back tears as her friends tried to cheer her up, urging her to focus on the baby's well-being. One unseasonably warm Saturday, Nadia was resting on a chaise lounge in the penthouse living room, absent-mindedly browsing a baby name forum. She felt a sudden cramp, sharp and alarming. She grabbed her phone to call Ethan, her heart pounding as she prayed he'd answer. His phone rang and rang. After 4 attempts, she left a voicemail, voice trembling. Desperate for comfort, she scrolled through social media. To her horror, a new post popped up. Bianca Reyes had just gone live on Instagram, showing off her shopping spree in the very same high-end boutique Ethan frequented. In the background, captured in the mirror's reflection, was Ethan. He looked relaxed, smiling as he carried Bianca's shopping bags. Nadia's calls were going to voicemail while her husband indulged his business partner in a spree of luxury. That moment, she understood that something had gone terribly wrong in their marriage. It wasn't just suspicion, it was heartbreak, loud and clear. Still, she fought to hold on to hope, telling herself he'd come home soon with an explanation. She needed to believe there was a misunderstanding, or that maybe, just maybe, she was overreacting. Yet her intuition warned her that she'd only glimpsed the start of a painful truth about to unravel. Nadia's cramps subsided enough for her to realize she might be able to handle the situation without rushing to the hospital. Even so, she felt rattled, like her body was warning her of deeper stress. She called Elena Martinez, who arrived soon after, out of breath and worried. Elena fussed over her, offering her water and insisting on taking her to the emergency room for a checkup. Nadia refused, not wanting to draw attention or escalate the situation until she was sure there was something wrong. Besides, her heart ached for Ethan's presence, yet he remained unreachable. Meanwhile, Ethan was having a grand time. Inside the posh boutique, he laughed alongside Bianca as she tried on suede boots, silver-plated bracelets, and an array of designer gowns. The store owner, Lucas Sterling, who recognized Ethan from various society events, treated him like royalty, offering champagne and discreet discounts. Bianca, her eyes gleaming with excitement, batted her eyelashes, pinching Ethan's arm whenever she wanted to show him an item she liked. To any casual observer, they appeared to be a smitten couple, fully immersed in the moment. At one point, Ethan's phone vibrated. He glanced at it absent-mindedly and saw Nadia's name flashing on the screen. A familiar pang of guilt threatened to spoil his fun, but Bianca tugged on his sleeve, urging him to zip up a dress for her. He tucked the phone back into his pocket, deciding to handle Nadia's call later, once he'd dropped Bianca off. Already, he dreaded the conversation. He could practically hear Nadia's anxious tone, lecturing him about the baby, the future, and how often he was missing out. It's always about what I'm not doing, he thought bitterly, instead of acknowledging all I've provided. Back at the penthouse, Elena gently suggested that Nadia rest in bed. She fluffed the pillows and offered to make some calming tea. Just try to relax, Elena murmured. We can talk more once you've rested. Nadia nodded, her thoughts swirling between fear for the baby and the searing image of Ethan and Bianca. Eventually, with Elena by her side, Nadia dozed off, tears still glimmering on her cheeks. When Nadia woke up, it was near dusk, and the penthouse windows were awash in pink and orange light. Her phone showed missed calls from Ethan. Anxiety tightened her chest, but she dialed him back immediately. This time, he picked up, his voice clipped. "Is everything okay?" he asked, not bothering with a greeting. Nadia took a breath. "I was worried about the baby. I called you 4 times. Where were you?" She tried to keep her voice steady. Ethan sighed. "I was in a meeting. My phone was on silent. Are you all right now?" That was it. No concern, no apology. Nadia steadied her trembling lip. "I had cramps. It was scary, Ethan. I thought I might need to go to the hospital." "And did you?" he asked matter-of-factly. "No, but then everything's fine." He cut her off, sounding impatient. "Listen, I've got a conference call in 5 minutes. I'll come home later." Before she could respond, the line went dead. Nadia stared at the phone, numb. She was carrying his child, a life they had both agreed to bring into this world. Yet he had abandoned her for a day of frivolous shopping, ignoring her calls during a potential emergency. She wanted to believe they could talk this through, to confront his behavior and salvage their marriage. But a chasm of doubt stretched between them, threatening to swallow any hope she had left. That evening, Elena stayed by Nadia's side, ordering takeout and massaging Nadia's back while murmuring words of reassurance. Although Nadia appreciated her friend's presence, the quiet tears that fell from her eyes were unstoppable. She stroked her belly, feeling the delicate movements of her child, his or her presence, a reminder of why she had to hold on to hope. She had to fight for her baby's future. But as night folded into day and Ethan still hadn't returned, Nadia realized a stark possibility. Perhaps she was fighting alone. Morning light seeped into the penthouse the next day, revealing the crumpled remains of takeout containers and tissues on the living room coffee table. Nadia woke early, her back aching from a restless sleep. She headed to the nursery, flipping on a soft lamp to admire the freshly painted walls, pale blue with tiny silver stars. This room was meant to be a refuge, a dreamscape for their newborn, yet it seemed overshadowed by marital strife that should never exist during what should have been a joyous time. As she gently folded tiny onesies, she heard the main door open. Ethan stepped into the hallway, exhausted circles under his eyes. Without a word, she marched to meet him, heart racing with anticipation, anger, and a sliver of lingering hope. "Where have you been?" she demanded quietly, arms folded protectively over her pregnant stomach. "I crashed at a hotel," Ethan replied, as though it were an afterthought. "Too much going on at work, and I wanted to get an early start today." Nadia stared, disbelieving. "You think that's acceptable? To not come home when your wife is 7 months pregnant and worried?" "It's not just worry, Nadia," he said, voice rising. "You're suffocating me with your demands. Every time I step out for business, you accuse me. I need space to breathe. This is a stressful time for me, business deals, finances, the baby, everything at once." She exhaled sharply, feeling her anger surge. "Don't you think this might be stressful for me too? Our child is inside me, and I'm terrified. The least you can do is show you care or answer my calls." Ethan rubbed his temple, the fatigue evident on his face. "You know I care about you, but sometimes you overreact. I can't be on standby for every little discomfort." "Every little discomfort?" The phrase echoed in Nadia's mind, each word shredding her composure. She wanted to scream at him, to hurl accusations about Bianca, about the pictures, about the callous disregard for her health. Yet a sense of self-preservation stopped her. If she confronted him now, he'd likely walk out again. She needed to approach this carefully, although part of her already suspected there was no salvaging a man so deeply entrenched in his own ego. The day wore on in silence, each trapped in a private prison of resentment. Nadia busied herself with a routine prenatal checkup that afternoon, refusing to ask Ethan to accompany her. She visited Dr. Stephanie Harwell, who reassured Nadia that the baby was healthy, but gently cautioned, "Stress isn't good for you or the baby, Mrs. Holmes. Try to find a calm environment, reduce anxiety." Nadia offered a weak smile, tears threatening to spill. Back at the penthouse, she found Ethan in the office, typing away on his laptop. A business document was open, brimming with legal jargon about a multi-million-dollar property venture. Her chest tightened. How had their life come to this, where business overshadowed everything? She cleared her throat. "Ethan, can we talk calmly?" He sighed and pushed the laptop away, turning to face her. "Go ahead." "Something's not right. I feel like we're moving in different directions. I'm lonely, scared, and I sense there's someone else. I can't ignore the photos, the rumors about Bianca Reyes." Ethan's jaw tightened, a flash of panic in his eyes, but he quickly covered it with feigned indignation. "Rumors? You think because I was photographed with a business associate, that means I'm having an affair? Nadia, that's absurd." She locked eyes with him, refusing to let him off easily, then explained the late nights, the ignored calls, the last-minute hotel stays. Explain why I saw you in Bianca's Instagram video holding her bags. He tried to laugh it off. I was being polite. She's a valued client. We were closing a deal at that boutique. A deal that involves holding shopping bags. Ethan's voice rose defensively. Stop interrogating me. I do plenty for you. I put a roof over your head, pay for the best medical care. You don't need to worry about money or the future because I've taken care of everything. All I ask is trust. Nadia's eyes burned with tears she refused to release. Trust is earned, not demanded. His phone began vibrating on the desk. Her heart lurched when she saw Bianca's name on the caller ID. Ethan quickly reached for the phone and silenced it, glancing at Nadia with a mixture of guilt and frustration. She pressed her lips together, humiliation rising inside her. I've given you every benefit of the doubt, Ethan, but I deserve more than lies. Our baby deserves more. For a moment, she thought she saw a flicker of regret pass over his features, but just as quickly, it was replaced with steely resolution. He stood, grabbing his jacket. I have a meeting. We'll finish this conversation later. Then he left, leaving Nadia alone in the office, tears finally spilling down her cheeks. In that echoing emptiness, she realized that no matter how softly she tried, she couldn't force Ethan to care. Days stretched into a week of cold distance. Ethan's public image only seemed to rise. He attended grand galas and charity benefits. Society columns praised his ambitious spirit, labeling him a real estate genius and featuring photos of him shaking hands with investors like the famed Robert Friedman and Gregory Stevenson. Meanwhile, Nadia spent her time reorganizing the nursery, attending LeMay's classes alone, and fielding well-intentioned questions from acquaintances about why Ethan was never by her side. During one of those lonely evenings, the doorbell rang. Nadia, feeling the strain in her lower back, slowly made her way to the door. Standing on the marble floor was none other than Bianca Reyes, tall, poised, and wearing a glimmering emerald dress that hugged her curves. Nadia's heart lurched. Could this woman be so brazen as to appear unannounced? Bianca greeted her with a plastic smile. Hello, Nadia. I'm sorry to drop by without warning, but Ethan suggested I pick up some documents. She waved a manicured hand, displaying thin gold bracelets that clinked audibly. Nadia couldn't speak, her mind racing with a mix of fury and disbelief. Ethan had sent Bianca here? To their home? She clenched the doorknob, feeling dizzy. Finally she managed, "What documents?" Bianca raised a delicate brow. "I believe they're for the Lakeshore Resort project. Contract proposals, I think." Nadia had heard Ethan mention the project, a lucrative deal to develop high-end vacation properties near a lake in upstate New York. Yet how could he possibly think it acceptable to let Bianca waltz into their home? Through trembling lips, Nadia said, "I'll see if he left them in his office." She gestured stiffly for Bianca to wait in the foyer. The office was cluttered with folders and printouts. Searching the desk, Nadia found a stack of proposals labeled Lakeshore Resort. She noticed small notes scribbled in Ethan's handwriting. Discuss with Bianca financial projections. Rage bubbled inside her, though she forced herself to keep a calm facade. Returning to the foyer, she extended the documents. "Here," she said, voice tense. Bianca accepted them with a sickeningly sweet smile. "Thank you, Nadia. And congratulations, by the way, on your pregnancy. Ethan mentioned it. You must be thrilled." Nadia gripped the folder she still held. She felt the baby stir within her, reminding her of her vulnerable state. "Yes," she replied coolly, "I am." Bianca's gaze dropped to Nadia's belly, a fleeting expression crossing her face. Was it pity, arrogance, or something else? "Well, I won't keep you. Good night." With that, she turned on her expensive heels and left, her perfume lingering in the air like a noxious reminder of betrayal. Nadia nearly collapsed onto the nearest chair, heart pounding. She tried to calm her breathing, aware that stress affected the baby. Yet she couldn't ignore how Ethan had disrespected her. Sending his mistress to their home was a new low. That night, when Ethan finally returned, he found Nadia waiting in the living room. Her eyes burned with cold fury. "Bianca was here," she said flatly. Ethan froze for a moment, looking genuinely caught off guard. "Why?" She said, "You sent her to pick up documents for the Lakeshore Resort project." He hesitated, searching for words. "Look, she must have misunderstood. I didn't specifically tell her to come here. Maybe she took my instructions too literally." "There's nothing going on." Nadia stood, hands gripping the back of the couch. "I'm done playing games, Ethan. This has to stop. You're hurting me, and you're hurting our unborn child. I won't stand by and let you and Bianca humiliate me in my own home." Ethan's temper flared at the accusation. "You don't know what you're talking about. You're making assumptions. You're letting your emotions get the better of you." "Am I?" Nadia snapped, tears threatening to break free. "Do you honestly expect me to believe you're not having an affair with her? Don't insult my intelligence. Everyone in this city can see you two together." He took a step toward her, his face a stony mask. "I will not be accused like a criminal in my own home. Let's talk about this in a civilized manner after you calm down." "Calm down?" Nadia repeated, voice trembling. "I've been calm. I've been patient. I've done everything to support your career and your life. But now I see how little you think of me." Ethan shook his head, almost dismissively. "Fine. Believe what you want. I'm done trying to reason with you." He turned and headed for the bedroom. Nadia stood there, breath ragged, feeling the final shards of her once blissful marriage slip from her grasp. She pressed a hand to her belly, whispering to the child within, "I promise I'll protect you, no matter what." But as the tears spilled, she couldn't help but wonder how, or if, she could protect herself from the avalanche of betrayal she felt was coming next. Emotions simmered dangerously beneath Nadia's surface. She tried to maintain her composure, especially around acquaintances and medical professionals, but her heart felt bruised beyond repair. At night, she'd weep softly into her pillow, wondering how her life had twisted into such tragedy. Still, she pressed on for the baby's sake. One morning, she forced herself out of bed to attend a special prenatal workshop recommended by Dr. Harwell. It was designed for couples, teaching them breathing techniques, emotional bonding exercises, and baby care basics. Nadia tried to coax Ethan into joining her, even offering to fit the session around his schedule. He declined, claiming urgent investment meetings. She arrived at the workshop alone, feeling a pang of loneliness as she saw other expectant mothers with their doting partners. Nonetheless, she threw herself into the activities, practicing breathing patterns, learning about diaper changes, and taking notes on postpartum care. During a lunch break, she ventured outside to find a bench under a tree, hoping fresh air would soothe her frazzled nerves. That's when she overheard two women from the same workshop whispering to each other, oblivious to Nadia's presence. Her husband's that real estate mogul, Ethan Holmes. "I heard rumors he's seen around town with another woman. Can you believe it? His wife is pregnant, for heaven's sake." A burst of fury and hurt seared Nadia's insides. She stepped away before the women noticed her. The gossip confirmed her suspicions. Her pain was no longer private, it was fodder for public chatter. Biting back tears, she decided to leave the workshop early. Her mind was too clouded to focus on anything but the ache in her chest. On her way back to the penthouse, her phone buzzed. She checked the caller ID Ethan. A surge of longing mixed with bitterness welled within her. Hoping he might finally offer some genuine contrition or support, she answered. "Hello," she said softly. "Hey," Ethan said, his tone rigid. "I need you to attend a dinner with me tonight. It's important. Gregory Stevenson and his wife are hosting a fundraising event, and it'll look good if you're there. Nadia nearly laughed at the audacity. You want me to come to a dinner for your image, Ethan? After ignoring me for weeks? I haven't ignored you, Nadia. It's business. And this dinner is crucial for my reputation. People have been talking, making assumptions about our marriage. Let's just show them that we're fine, okay? I'm trying to mitigate gossip. She gripped the steering wheel, pulling over to the side of the road, her vision blurred by fresh tears. Your reputation? That's all you care about? What about our child? What about me? He paused. We'll talk later. Just be ready by 7. Wear something classy. The line disconnected, leaving her seething. Classy? She was nearly 8 months pregnant, exhausted and emotionally drained. Yet she still felt a flicker of hope. Maybe if she went to this event, Ethan would see how strong she was. Maybe, just maybe, they could bridge this gap. That evening, Nadia slipped into a black satin maternity gown that shimmered under the penthouse lights. She applied light makeup, accentuating her soft brown eyes. Despite her anger, she looked regal, with her growing belly lending an unexpected aura of strength. When Ethan saw her, he offered a tight nod as if to say, "This will do." No compliment, no warmth, only a forced courtesy that made her heart sink further. At the fundraiser, everyone admired her glow. Guests, like Ariella Friedman and Matthew Clark, extended congratulations and polite inquiries about the baby. Nadia forced smiles, answering with practiced grace. Ethan paraded her around, introducing her to potential investors, sipping champagne while she sipped juice. Then, from across the elegantly decorated ballroom, Nadia caught sight of Bianca Reyes. The woman was clad in a shimmering gold dress, her arm hooked through the elbow of an older gentleman. She caught Nadia's gaze and offered a cryptic smile. The air thickened. Nadia felt an urge to storm out, but she held her ground. She would not be humiliated in public. During dessert, Bianca sashayed over with a cunning smile. "Nadia, how lovely to see you out. You look radiant." She turned to Ethan. "Darling, you never told me she'd be here." Ethan's face darkened, but he quickly recovered. "Nadia is my wife. Of course she's here." His voice was cold, each syllable edged with warning. Bianca merely shrugged, turning back to Nadia. "I'm glad you're taking care of yourself. These events can be tiresome in your condition." She said it so sweetly, it made Nadia's stomach churn. Nadia mustered every ounce of dignity she had, looking Bianca straight in the eye. "The only tiresome thing here is dealing with people who overstep boundaries." A stunned hush fell between them. Bianca, eyes flashing, took a step back. Ethan hastily excused himself and Bianca from the conversation, steering her away to avoid making a scene. Nadia stood there trembling, feeling the baby move. She couldn't believe she had just confronted Bianca so openly. A part of her felt triumphant, another part of her felt hollow. As the fundraiser ended, Nadia left alone in their chauffeured car, Ethan staying behind to finish important conversations. Staring out the tinted window, city lights dancing like distant hopes, Nadia resolved that this had to end. She'd tasted her own strength tonight. The question was, could she dare to walk away? 2 weeks passed in a blur of mounting tension. Nadia's due date loomed, and with each passing day, she felt more certain she needed an exit plan. The heartbreak of watching Ethan flaunt his closeness with Bianca through business lunches at 5-star restaurants and numerous sightings across the city was unbearable. Yet she was not the same naive woman she'd been. Something had shifted after that night at the fundraiser. She had confronted Bianca once and discovered a well of courage within herself. Nadia decided to confide in her old college friend, Jackson Michaels, who worked as a private investigator. Jackson had once helped a mutual friend track down a missing relative, and Nadia knew he was both resourceful and discreet. She called him and, without delving into the most personal details, explained she suspected Ethan of an affair. Nadia asked Jackson to find concrete evidence proof that would hold up in any legal confrontation. Jackson agreed, but expressed worry for Nadia's emotional and physical health. She thanked him and told him she'd be careful. Over the next few days, Jackson quietly trailed Ethan, snapping photos and noting suspicious patterns. He witnessed Ethan meeting Bianca at a secluded restaurant on the city's outskirts. The pair locked in an intimate embrace before stepping inside. Another day, Ethan and Bianca entered a luxury hotel and did not emerge for hours. Jackson compiled everything into a confidential folder, which he handed over to Nadia with a sympathetic nod. "I'm sorry," he murmured. Nadia felt her throat tighten as she glanced through the pictures. Though she had long suspected, seeing undeniable proof of Ethan's betrayal felt like being doused in ice water. Her heartbreak crystallized into a quiet resolve. She told Jackson she might need them as leverage in the near future. He merely squeezed her shoulder and reminded her to look after herself. One afternoon, while Ethan was supposedly out of town on a business trip, Nadia received an urgent text from Elena Martinez, spotted Ethan at the Redwood Hotel with Bianca. "Are you okay?" Nadia felt a wave of nausea. She texted back, "I'll be fine. Thank you for telling me." She realized then that she was no longer primarily upset. She was furious angry for the disregard of her pregnancy, her dignity, and the vows they once shared. She rubbed her belly, whispering reassurances to the baby, "We'll get through this, sweet one." With her mind made up, Nadia began researching divorce lawyers. She found Sophia Hamilton, a reputable attorney known for handling high-profile cases with compassion. Nadia set up a discreet appointment at Sophia's unassuming suburban office, arriving in a plain outfit to avoid drawing attention. When she recounted her story, voice trembling, Sophia listened intently, occasionally making notes. "Nadia," Sophia began gently, "I'm so sorry you're going through this. Given Ethan's substantial assets, this case could be complicated. But if you have evidence and you're ready to proceed, we can secure your interests and, most importantly, the child's." "What do you want?" Nadia swallowed hard. "I want a fresh start. I want financial security for my baby. And I want out of this marriage." Sophia nodded, compassion in her eyes. "We can file for separation first, gather more information about his financial holdings, and proceed with a divorce petition. But we should ensure you're safe, especially given your advanced pregnancy." "Safe?" Nadia echoed. "Sometimes high-conflict divorces escalate. I'm not saying Ethan would harm you, but it's wise to have a plan somewhere to go if the situation becomes hostile." Nadia realized the gravity of her decision. Still, she pressed on. "I'm ready," she said, voice steady despite the lump in her throat. When she returned to the penthouse, she started quietly packing a suitcase. She placed it in the back of a closet, hidden by winter coats. She tucked the folder Jackson gave her under folded sweaters, only taking it out to glance at the photos. Each time her heart ached, but her resolve grew stronger. She wouldn't confront Ethan yet, not until she'd arranged every piece of the puzzle. A few days later, Ethan strode in unexpectedly, while Nadia was reviewing hospital brochures in the living room. She jumped, worried he might have caught her rummaging through evidence, but he simply tossed his keys on the counter. "We need to go to a dinner in Redwood City next weekend. The mayor is hosting a business summit. I have a speech, and you should be by my side." Redwood City. Possibly the same Redwood Hotel where he'd met Bianca. Nadia's stomach twisted, but she kept her expression neutral. "I'm nearly 9 months pregnant, Ethan. Traveling might not be safe." He waved her concern away. "You'll be fine. The doctor said you can travel until the last few weeks, right? I'll arrange first-class transport. We can't have people whispering that my wife never shows up." Nadia stared at him, thinking of the ironically twisted narrative. In public, he wanted to maintain the facade of a perfect couple, while privately flaunting his affair. Steeling herself, she replied, "I'll think about it." Then she stood and walked away, leaving him puzzled by her abruptness. In the bedroom, Nadia locked the door, sank onto the bed, and let the tears come. But this time, they were tears of both sorrow and relief. She knew the next steps would be hard, perhaps messy, but there was no turning back. Armed with proof, a lawyer, and her own burning resolve, she was ready to walk away for good. The following week, Nadia visited Sophia Hamilton once more to finalize her strategy. She explained Ethan's plan for them to travel to Redwood City. Sophia advised caution, but acknowledged that if Nadia wished to go, it could be an opportunity to gather more evidence or insight into Ethan's business dealings, though the risk of traveling so close to her due date was considerable. Meanwhile, Ethan insisted on the trip, leaving no room for negotiations. Nadia sensed it was another one of his attempts to control her image, to keep her under his thumb while he kept up appearances in the public eye. She agreed to attend, but she quietly informed Elena about her location, just in case anything happened. On the flight, Ethan barely acknowledged Nadia, engrossed in his laptop. The tension between them was palpable, but he masked it in front of the flight attendant, offering clipped smiles and superficial politeness. Nadia felt the baby shift inside her, and she stroked her belly as if to say, "We're almost through." Upon arriving in Redwood City, they checked into an opulent suite in a grand hotel, ironically, across the street from the Redwood Hotel where Ethan had once met Bianca. The night of the business summit arrived swiftly. Nadia, feeling drained but determined, slipped into a flowing navy gown that accommodated her pregnant form. She sat quietly through Ethan's speech, heart pounding whenever he cast her a hollow glance. After the dinner concluded, Ethan was surrounded by business associates. Nadia found a quiet corner to rest, sipping water. Out of the corner of her eye, she spotted a familiar figure in a figure-hugging silver dress, Bianca Reyes. Nadia's chest tightened as Bianca glided toward Ethan, leaning close to whisper something in his ear. He appeared tense, eyes darting around as if he feared being seen. With a forced smile, he quickly excused himself from the conversation, leaving Bianca standing alone. Nadia's pulse pounded in her ears. She could no longer suppress her indignation. Summoning her courage, she approached Bianca. "You seem awfully comfortable around my husband," she stated, voice calm but firm. Bianca's lips curved into a cunning smile. "Why wouldn't I be? We have business matters to discuss." Nadia swallowed hard. "Stop this. Whatever game you're playing, it's cruel. I'm carrying his child, and you're parading around like you own him." Bianca's demeanor shifted, eyes narrowing. "Don't pretend you don't know how these marriages work. You get the ring, the name, the lifestyle. Men like Ethan need more someone who can keep up with his ambition, someone who's not weighed down by domestic concerns." The audacity of her words made Nadia's blood boil. She was about to retort when she felt a sharp twinge in her abdomen. She winced, pressing a hand to her side. Bianca noticed and raised a single brow. "You all right there?" she asked, not sounding particularly concerned. Nadia forced herself to stand taller. "I won't let you or Ethan degrade me anymore." Then she turned and walked away, her pace slower than she wished, due to the sudden pain. She spotted Ethan whispering with an investor across the room. Summoning what remained of her energy, she grabbed his arm. "I need to leave. Now," she said, voice tight with pain. Ethan glanced at her, annoyed. "Can it wait? I'm discussing a major deal." "No," Nadia insisted, her face paling. "I'm feeling contractions. We need to go." Alarm flashed over his features. He hastily excused himself and led her out to the car. During the ride back to the hotel, Nadia's breathing was labored. "I need a hospital," she panted. Ethan's eyes flickered with genuine worry for the first time in months. "Hang on, we're almost there." Within minutes, they pulled up to the nearest hospital. Nadia was rushed to a maternity ward, doctors prepping her for a possible early labor. It was almost 3 weeks before her due date, but the stress and tension had possibly triggered her contractions. Ethan paced the hallway, anxiously awaiting news. When a nurse finally emerged, she smiled reassuringly. "She's stable, but we're monitoring her closely. The baby might come sooner than expected, or the contractions might calm down. We need to see how it progresses." Ethan nodded, relief washing over his face. "Can I see her?" "Yes, but keep it brief. She needs rest." Stepping into the room, Ethan found Nadia propped on pillows, the 4th tubes attached to her arm. She looked fragile, eyes closed in exhaustion. For a moment, guilt gnawed at him. He approached quietly. "Nadia," he whispered. She opened her eyes, tears forming at the edges. She said nothing, just stared at the man who had caused her so much pain. Though physically weak, she was emotionally fortified by her near brush with an early labor crisis. Without looking away, she whispered, "Ethan, I'm done with this charade." Before he could respond, a nurse ushered him out, telling him to let Nadia rest. Alone in the hallway, Ethan leaned against the cold wall, mind racing. For the first time, he couldn't ignore the weight of his betrayal. His carefully constructed world was crumbling, and he realized that no business deal or mistress could fix the pain he'd inflicted on his pregnant wife. For the next 2 days, Nadia remained in the hospital, her contractions thankfully easing. The doctors placed her on bed rest, warning her that any surge in stress could trigger preterm labor again. Ethan, uncharacteristically subdued, tried to stay by her bedside, but Nadia asked him to leave, needing solitude to sort out her conflicted emotions. As she rested, Nadia called Elena, explaining the situation and asking her to help finalize logistics for leaving Ethan once and for all. Elena promised to handle everything, from making sure the penthouse was accessible for movers to contacting Sophia Hamilton about fast-tracking legal papers. Ethan's visits to Nadia's hospital room were brief. He offered apologies that sounded forced, as though he knew he had to say them but didn't fully grasp their meaning. Nadia often feigned sleep, unwilling to engage in any discussion. Inside, she steeled herself, vowing that no amount of half-hearted remorse could undo the months of betrayal. On the morning of her discharge, Ethan insisted on escorting her back to the penthouse. Nadia agreed, only because she needed to gather her belongings and leave on her own terms. The drive was silent, tension thick in the air. When they arrived, Nadia found the penthouse in disarray, piles of mail scattered on the foyer table, some half-eaten takeout in the kitchen. Clearly, Ethan hadn't bothered to maintain the place. She shook her head, heading straight to the master bedroom to rest. Meanwhile, Ethan muttered something about important phone calls and disappeared into his home office. 2 hours later, Elena knocked on the penthouse door, accompanied by 2 professional movers. They carried boxes and suitcases, heading directly for the bedroom. Nadia rose from the bed, greeting Elena with a grateful embrace. "Thank you," she whispered, tears brimming. "I can't believe I'm actually doing this." Elena pressed her friend's hand comfortingly. "You deserve a safe, loving home, Nadia. Let's get you out of here." Ethan, alerted by the sound of footsteps and rustling boxes, emerged from his office in a rage. What the hell is going on? He glared at the movers, then at Nadia. Nadia stood tall, her hand resting protectively on her belly. "I'm leaving, Ethan." His face contorted, disbelief mingling with anger. "You can't just take my child away." Elena jumped in, voice steady. "Nadia has every right to separate from you, and any custody or visitation matters will be handled by the courts. This is not a discussion." Ethan rounded on Nadia, his voice rough. "This is because of that detective, isn't it? Because you decided to dig around in my private life, he scoffed. Don't act like you're blameless. You've been distant, always complaining. Nadia's tears fell, but she refused to back down. I was distant because you broke my trust. You chose to lie, to cheat, to shut me out when I needed you most. And now I'm choosing me and my baby. He stared, chest heaving, apparently torn between denying everything and admitting his guilt. Finally, he barked at the movers to get out. They paused, uncertain, until Elena gave a nod for them to continue. Furious, Ethan stomped to the kitchen, possibly to make angry phone calls or pace until he wore a hole in the tile. Nadia moved methodically, gathering clothes, baby items, and personal keepsakes, wedding photos she debated, taking but ultimately tossed aside. Why keep mementos of a marriage that was a sham? She paused momentarily over a framed picture from their honeymoon, her once radiant smile now a painful reminder of shattered dreams. With trembling hands, she set it down on the bedside table and never looked back. Within an hour, the boxes and suitcases were loaded onto a small moving van. Nadia followed Elena out of the penthouse. Ethan rushed to the door, blocking her path. "Don't do this," he pleaded, desperation seeping into his voice. "We can work this out. Think about our child, our future." For a moment, Nadia's resolve wavered. She remembered the man she fell in love with, the sweet moments early in their relationship. But then the months of anguish flashed in her mind, the unanswered calls, Bianca's sneers, the public humiliation, her near brush with preterm labor. She looked up at him, tears glistening. "I did think about our child. That's why I can't stay." Ethan stepped aside, his shoulders slumping. Nadia walked past him, tears streaming, but her spine straight. She left the penthouse, stepping into the elevator alongside Elena. As the doors slid shut, a wave of relief washed over her. It wasn't the happy ending she'd once envisioned, but it was a new beginning, one she desperately needed. Nadia moved in with Elena temporarily, finding solace in her friend's cozy townhouse near the outskirts of Cincinnati. While the legal process loomed, Nadia focused on self-care, gentle prenatal exercises, reading up on parenting and trying to maintain low stress levels. Sophia Hamilton arranged for a formal separation agreement to be delivered to Ethan, requesting fair spousal support and child support. The divorce process, though daunting, gave Nadia a sense of control she hadn't felt in months. One afternoon, Sophia called with an update. "Ethan's lawyer contacted me. He's resistant to some of our terms, but he seems open to negotiation. They want a settlement meeting." Nadia exhaled slowly. "I'll do what's best for me and the baby. I'm not going to be bullied." The settlement meeting took place in a sleek downtown law office, where panoramic windows showcased the city skyline. Nadia, seated beside Sophia, felt her heart pounding. Ethan arrived, wearing a tailored suit that seemed to hang on him more loosely than before. He looked tired, older than his 32 years, and yet the same arrogance flickered in his eyes. Across the table sat Ethan's attorney, Martin Langford, a stern man in his 50s with a reputation for aggression. As they began discussions, it became clear he intended to minimize Nadia's claims. "My client acknowledges the marriage is ending," he stated in a clipped tone. "However, the demands for spousal support are excessive. Mrs. Holmes has no need for such a high figure." Sophia countered, her tone calm and measured, highlighting Ethan's significant financial gains during the marriage and Nadia's precarious state, being late in her pregnancy and having sacrificed her own career prospects to support Ethan's. The tension escalated until Ethan finally spoke, addressing Nadia directly. "Why are you doing this? I offered to support you. You didn't have to leave." Nadia held his gaze, remembering all the nights of tears, the humiliations, the unanswered calls. "Because sometimes support isn't about money, Ethan. It's about respect, love, and loyalty." She paused, voice breaking. "I can't stay married to a man who treats me like an afterthought." He clenched his jaw, a fleeting sadness crossing his features, but the sadness gave way to resentment. "Fine," he said sharply, "I'll pay what's needed for the child, but don't expect me to fund your lifestyle." Sophia gave him a cool smile. "Our proposal is more than reasonable given your net worth and investments. We're confident a judge would see it that way too." After hours of tense back and forth, they reached a tentative agreement. Nadia would receive a comfortable monthly amount to care for the baby, along with a fair settlement that reflected her share in Ethan's rising fortune. Visitation rights for Ethan would be arranged once the child was born, pending further mediation. When the meeting adjourned, Ethan lingered, studying Nadia's face. "Are you sure there's no chance?" Nadia's eyes shimmered with tears. She touched her belly, now only a few weeks away from full term. "You made your choices. I have to make mine." That was all she said before turning away, leaving him standing in the boardroom with regret etched across his features. A few days later, the final blow arrived in the form of Bianca Reyes' public announcement. She was engaged to another wealthy real estate investor from New York. Apparently, she had moved on from Ethan just as easily as she'd ensnared him. A swirl of gossip painted Ethan as the scorned fling, a cautionary tale of how fleeting such affairs can be. Nadia felt no triumph, only a distant sense of pity for him. As Nadia's due date approached, she focused on her upcoming life as a single mother. With Elena's help, she found a modest apartment, a sunny two-bedroom space, with a small balcony. She decorated it with love and care, hanging pastel curtains in the nursery and placing an armchair for late-night feedings. Each day brought new challenges, but also new freedoms. Finally, on a crisp morning in early autumn, Nadia went into labor. Elena rushed her to the hospital. After hours of labor pains and determination, Nadia welcomed a beautiful baby girl into the world, Lily Marie Holmes. Holding Lily in her arms, Nadia felt an overwhelming surge of love. The past year's betrayals and heartbreak momentarily faded, replaced by the tender warmth of a new beginning. Ethan visited the hospital the next day. He stood awkwardly at the door, carrying a small stuffed bear. Nadia allowed him in, letting him meet his daughter. She watched Ethan's eyes fill with tears as he cradled Lily for the first time. In that moment, Nadia realized there would always be a connection between them through this child. But it didn't have to shackle her to an unhappy marriage. It could exist as a separate bond. A week later, Nadia brought Lily home to the cozy apartment, where a future of possibilities awaited them. She had no illusions that life would be easy, but she felt a sense of peace she hadn't felt in a long time. Her journey showed her that sometimes walking away isn't just an end, it's the bravest beginning. As she gazed at Lily sleeping in her crib, Nadia vowed to fill their days with love, honesty, and the freedom to dream again. The mansion and penthouse might still hold Ethan's name, but Nadia held something far more precious, her self-respect and a new life that promised hope. No matter how difficult the path ahead might be, Nadia's journey proves that even the most shattered of hearts can heal when given the courage to walk away. She faced betrayal, public humiliation, and the agonizing fear of bringing a child into a broken marriage. Yet, through unwavering resolve, supportive friends, and her own fierce love for her unborn daughter, Nadia reclaimed her life and started anew, this time on her own terms. Thank you for joining us on this emotional roller coaster. If Nadia's story inspired you or touched your heart, please show your support by liking this video, sharing it with someone who needs a reminder that they too can overcome life's toughest challenges, and subscribing for more powerful stories. Let Nadia's victory remind us all that walking away from what hurts us can be the first step toward the life we truly deserve. Your engagement helps us continue bringing these stories to life. Thank you for reading. If you enjoyed this dramatic, twist-filled story, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more captivating tales. Your support makes all the difference.